Black Swan is a DOT damage dealer and is practically a must-pull for players who love DOT playstyles. How's it going, everyone? This is Kay. I already broke down which character you should choose on the 2.0 banners, but before you pull, let's break down Black Swan further and highlight some of the pros and cons you should consider. Basic is a single target wind attack that has a chance to inflict one stack of Arcana debuff on the target. If they already have DOT type debuffs like Wind Shear, Burn, Bleed, or Shock, each has a chance to further inflict one extra Arcana stack on the enemy. So Arcana stacks are a type of wind DOT, and enemies are considered to be in the Wind Shear state. Now, this does not mean it is the same as Wind Shear debuff. Her skill deals both single target and adjacent damage, which also has a high chance to inflict an Arcana stack on them. The skill can also debuff the enemy's defense. With her talent, whenever an enemy receives DOT at the start of their turn, there is yet another chance to inflict the Arcana debuff onto them. While afflicted by Arcana, the enemy will receive Wind DOT every turn, scaling with Black Swan's attack. Now, for each stack they carry, the Wind DOT's multiplier will increase based on the talent's level. Once the enemy takes this Wind DOT damage at the start of their turn, the Arcana stacks will reset to 1. Max stacks you can have is 50. If the target takes Arcana damage while having 3 stacks or more, it deals Wind DOT to adjacent enemies with a chance to add a stack onto the adjacent targets. If there is 7 or more stacks, the current DOT dealt ignores 20% of the target and adjacent enemy's defense. Her ultimate deals AoE damage and inflicts another debuff on all enemies called Epiphany, which lasts for 2 turns. Enemies affected by this receives more damage during their turn, so basically more DOT damage. Their Arcana debuff is also then regarded as Wind Shear, Burn, Bleed, and Shock effects. On top of that, the Arcana stacks on the enemy will not reset one time while the Epiphany debuff is active. For Traces, her skill will have a similar effect like her basic attack, in which you can inflict stacks if you hit enemies that already has any of the 4 main DOT types. Another passive trace inflicts 1 stack of Arcana onto the enemy when they enter battle. Additionally, you can add more stacks when enemies receive DOT from single attacks made by allies. Her last trace is a damage boost, scaling with her effect hit rate stats. Using her technique will inflict 1 stack of Arcana onto all enemies and will have a chance to continuously inflict Arcana stacks until it fails. For example, going into battle and enemy gets 1 stack, there's a chance they'll receive a second stack. If they do, then there's a chance they'll get a 3rd stack, and then this continues until it fails. So Black Swan is going to fit right in with the current DOT units we have. In fact, as a strong DPS unit, she can be a top choice when building those teams. You will most likely have 3 DOTs with a sustain within your party, or 2 DOTs, a support, and then a sustain. Being a wind character, Sampo can make a great ally for Black Swan, as both can easily break enemies. And of course you have Hua Hua, who is also a wind path character who can act as a sustain to keep your allies alive with the constant healing and debuff dispel that she offers. On top of that, she can also increase attack and help with energy, which is very important because you do want to spam ultimates as much as possible. But of course, other DOT characters like Wenifin and Luca can also synergize well with Black Swan. If you have her, adding Ron Mei as a support character is just perfect because she's going to be so helpful in break. A positive thing about DOTs that I've always liked is that relic stats farming is a bit easier, since crit stats, though helpful, isn't fully required for characters like Black Swan or Kafka. But those stats aren't as demanding compared to traditional DPSs. This makes building Black Swan easier, which makes resource farming more effective, resulting in you being able to build her and different units faster. I know I'm not the only one who farms for weeks just to obtain absolutely useless relics. Now, going back to Black Swan, she is self-sustaining, where you can form a team even if you don't have Kafka. That's usually the question a lot of players will have, but just know, Kafka and Black Swan together is the most ideal DOT team. Regardless, it's not like Black Swan becomes useless without her and can still function with other units. Now, if you are looking for that queen of DOTs that will excel that playstyle to new heights, Black Swan is not the character for that role. If you are in need of that character, it's better to go with Kafka. Simply put, Kafka is currently a staple for DOT teams, and Black Swan is a unit that will further enhance the team's strength. Keep in mind, Black Swan's main form of damage is backloaded. Some players prefer front-loaded damage, so if you dislike waiting for damage to trigger, or putting it bluntly, hate DOTs, then obviously do not pull for her. Another thing about her is that she's not a universal unit. She does have some universal abilities like an AoE defense debuff that can benefit the whole entire team, but in non-DOT teams, skip her and go for Sparkle or someone else who can offer more support instead. An important thing to remember is that she can be both SP positive or SP negative, depending on if the battle is single target or AoE. This is because her basic attack can add 2 Arcana stacks, just like her skill. In single target battles, you can just use her skill once for the defense debuff, which lasts 3 turns, then just attack with her basic till you need to reapply her skill again. Obviously, front load portion of her damage from the attack and energy is lower compared to her skill, but she can help generate skill points for the team. But using the basic will have lower chances to inflict Arcana stacks compared to using her skill, so keep that in mind. Now, in AoE situations, you need to use her skill every time to apply Arcana stacks onto adjacent enemies. This will make her an SP hungry unit that will affect others, and depending on your team, this can hurt a lot, like having Kafka for example, who is also SP hungry. Now, I mentioned Sparkle before, and that's because she is a great unit to have for almost any player. Only time you wouldn't really want to use Sparkle is that your teams are not SP hungry. Reason why I brought this up is because Sparkle's banner is right after Black Swan, so generally, I would recommend Sparkle a bit more than Black Swan. Thankfully, the other 2 banners has less priority. Now, I'm not saying Danheng IL is bad or Jing Yuan is bad or anything, but with Dr. Ratio being free to all players, a lot of people are clearing MOC with Dr. Ratio, so Danheng IL's role, though strong and still a top tier unit, lessened a bit because we all have a strong imaginary character for free. Now, this is unrelated to the current 2.0 banners, but Acheron is coming out next update, and she looks to be an amazing character, and no doubt a lot of players will want to pull for her. So if you're going for Black Swan, even maybe Sparkle, you may not have enough for Acheron next update. These are things you have to consider when pulling for a character, because we just don't have enough resources, unless you spend money of course, to pull for every single unit that's going to be released. But above all else, the number 1 reason why you should pull for Black Swan is because she's a top tier waifu. I mean, just look at her. She looks amazing. I personally love her design. And sometimes that's all the reason you need to pull for a character. I'm just joking around a bit, but honestly, if you do like a character's design or their traits or whatever the case may be, don't hesitate to pull. You're meant to have fun with these games. Overall, Black Swan is a great character to have, especially if you love DOT teams or you main Kafka, but she's not a must pull. Otherwise, comment down below to let me know if you're pulling for Black Swan or not, or are you saving for Sparkle, or are you pulling for someone else? Comment down below to let me know. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for future Genshin and Star Rail videos. Till next time, everyone.